So where did we stop in the last class? So we were talking about JavaScript HTML DOM. We saw how to use HTML DOM to, you know, manipulate the elements of HTML page, right? So that is how you can dynamically modify an HTML page. Yes. So today we'll talk about events first of all. Okay. Let's see how to work with the events. Yes. So I can say that events allow us to make the page interactive. Events will allow us to make the page interactive, I can say. So when I say interactive, so what does that mean? What do you people think? Yeah. So if user performs any actions, yes, we can respond we can make the page to respond to the user's actions, I can say. Yes. If user performs any actions, we can make the page to respond to the user's actions. That is what we can do here with JavaScript. We can make a page interactive. Yes, that is what interactive means. Making the page to respond to the user's actions. Yeah, and whenever user performs an action on the page, whatever the user does, user clicks on an element, or user moves the cursor, or user will type in some text in the field input field, or the content of an input field changes. So these are all various types of events, I can say. Yes, when a page loads, even when a HTML page loads, that is also an event. Yeah. So there are many different types of events. Already we saw this click event, I can say, on click event. You see, when user clicks on the button, we are calling a function which makes some changes to this page, right? It will make some changes to this page here. Similarly, actually, this on click event which you got here, can we only perform this on click event? I mean, this event, is it only for buttons, or can we also apply this on click event for other types of elements? Yeah, on click event, you will find that here it is not just specific to this button. Okay, yes, you can apply on click event to any element. Okay, yes, for example, even for the header also you can apply it. But suppose I can do this. You see, on click, yes, that's right, for links, for everything. So it works for everything, almost everything here. See, on click equal to, sorry, change header. I'm trying to register on click event for this header. So let's test it once. See, you can click on this header now. First header. I'll click on this header. Yeah, you got this paragraph. So this way, even we can apply on click for everything. Yeah. Next, we have this form. So even for the form, sorry, for the forms, okay, there is one more, another type of event here, that is on submit. You see, when the form is submitted, when the form is submitted, I want to handle that event. Okay, yes, when user submits the form, I would like to handle the event. Yes, that is on submit. I can say that is on submit. Yes. So generally, what happens is now, if you submit this form, straight away the browser will collect all this form data and it will send it to the server. That's it. Browser will collect all this form data and it will send it to the server, as you say. But before this data is sent to the server, I want to validate this data. Okay. As soon as the form is submitted, I want to validate this data. So what to do? You see, this is where your on submit event comes into the picture. Okay. Yes. So you can register this event on submit. You see, on submit. Let's say validate form. You can give any name. And you can define a function here. Function to validate form. Now I want to check whether the user supplied that first name or not. I want to check whether user provided that first name or not. So for that, first of all, we have to read the content, that input data, which is typed in that first name field. Now you know how to access that first name field, right? So we have gone through HTML down. You know how to access any element, but how to read the input field value, that we didn't see, right? Yes. So let me just show you people. Not a big deal. First, you can get the reference to that element this way. Document dot get element by ID, and you can pass that ID. Did we configure any ID here? No. ID equal to, let's say, first name. So this method, it returns that elements reference, and I would like to read the value which is typed in that element. Okay. So what to do? You see, you have a value property. You got a value property here, which you can make use of to read the value. Yes. So this way, you can read an input field value. Now you got this input field value. You can try now validating this data. Okay. Yes. Just a minute, please. Okay. So how will you validate this form now? Okay. I mean this first name. I want to check whether user has provided this first name or not. What to do? So you can write this if condition here quickly. So if first name is equal to just a blank, or first name is equal to null, I'll print an alert message. You see, to print an alert message, we can use this alert function. Please provide first name. Okay? Please provide first name. That's it. Let's test this code. The user didn't provide anything and submit this form. Just please provide first name. So now here, you know, I'll type in some data. Now I see it will take it. So, but actually, one more thing. If that if there is a validation error, I want to prevent this page from submission. I don't want to submit this page. I mean form. I don't want this form to be submitted here. Yes, I don't want this form to be submitted. I want this form submission to be avoided. So, what to do?
Oh,
So, in this case, this function should return false. Make this function to return false. Not here, I'm sorry. Okay. So, if you make this function to return false, then you can avoid this form submission. You can say you will be able to avoid form submission. Yes. Now, I'll give you people a task on this to validate that data, so that I'll make you people work with regular expressions here, some regular expressions. Yeah, at the end of the class, I'll do that. Yes. So this way, you see, the on submit event here is used to validate the form data when the user submits the form. Okay. Yeah. Next, we have other types of events. Okay, but before that, I want to do one more thing. Generally, you see, instead of displaying that alert, that warning error message in the alert box, I don't want to do this. Instead, I would like to display that. I would like to display this data. Just a second. Okay. Yeah. Also, please add written keyword here also while calling that function. Okay. Yes. Now this will prevent that form submission. Okay. Yes. You see, if I submit the form, what happens if there is a validation error? Page is not submitted. You see, nothing is happening. Yes. Yep. So now, what I wanted to do here, you see, just adjacent to this text field, I want to display that error message first name. Yes, I hope you people got this point, right? So what you will do in this case? Yeah, let's see. You know this, what to do. Okay, let me show you people. Here, if you just adjacent to this first name field, I would like to display the error message rather than using alert box. Okay, alert boxes are somewhat sometimes embracing. So what you can do is here, you can go for this. Just we'll add additional column here, another cell, and in this cell, I would like to display that content. Okay, just think about it. What am I supposed to do? In the cell, I want to display that content.
We can just create an empty paragraph
Empty paragraph.
and
Okay.
then after validating we can just pass the inner HTML over there.
So yeah, what you can do is instead of a paragraph, we can go for div element here. It's better to use div, and you give ID to this div element. Let's say message. Okay. Now you see this is empty now. Whenever there is a validation error, what you will do? So you will simply access this element dynamically and add that message error validation error message text here. Add that message text here. That's it. See, always div element is used to mark a portion of a page. I can say div element is used to mark the portion of a page. Yes. So you see now this div element I can say that you see it represents this section of the page. What is it? The cell. You got the cell, right? Yes. So what I'm going to do is here now instead of calling this alert function, simply we'll access the div element document dot get element by id and the element name is message. Now, how will you add the text content to that element? Now we got the reference to that element. How will you add the text content? You know that.
What inner
What is
HTML?
inner HTML? Inner HTML equal to this error message. Let's say please provide first name. The first name is required, whatever it is. Yeah. If you want, you can also add some styles to this div element. Okay, as of now, we can do the style color red. So the text in that div element will be displayed in red color. You see, I'll submit the form. This first name is required. You see, if user types in something here, I want this error to be removed again. I don't want this error. Whenever user types in something, this error should be removed. So what to do? Again, for that we need an event. It won't be click event actually. One change event also won't work dynamically. It won't update the content. I mean, in this context, we can't use it. Yeah. So, key press event. You have to use key press on key press. Now, I will call this function here remove message. Let's say what it does. This remove message function. Yeah. Sorry. So let me define this method here. Function remove message. Now you have to tell me how do I remove that message. Yes. So first of all, it is very simple. You need to access this element document dot get element by id message dot inner html equal to just a blank text. That's it. Okay, just add blank text. So on key press, what it does, on key press, this is an event. What does it mean? This event here, it indicates that when user, you know, presses any key, especially in that input field, when when user starts typing in something, so user will press a key to type in something, right? Yes. So that is that event here, key press event. You see, we'll submit the form. It says that in the now the error message is displayed, and when user types in something here in the form, I want this message to be removed. Yes, you see, it's gone. So this way we can use on key press events. Okay, fine. Now the next thing is here. You see, um, what we are doing is when the form is submitted, at that time we are trying to validate this first name field, right? Yeah. Okay. Before we move on, first of all, what we did here so far, is it clear, all of you? Yes. Is it clear? Okay. Fine. So then I can move on. You see, now what we did is here, when the form is submitted, at that time we are trying to validate this form, right? Here, validate this first name, I'm sorry. When the form is submitted, at that time we are trying to validate this first name. But what I want to do is, I don't want to wait till the form is submitted. As once the user is done typing in that first name in this input field, I want that input field to be validated here. Yes. Okay. Yeah, I don't want to wait till the form is submitted. But once the user is done typing in the first name in that input field, um, I want to validate it. I mean, how is it possible? How do we know? Generally, let's say the validations which we are performing here is only null, right? That means user won't type in anything. So we have another validation here. If first name dot length, okay, first name dot length. If length is less than 4 characters, then in that case, I want to raise a validation error for that. Okay, the first name is less than 4 characters. Okay, we have length property in the string object. You can use it. If it is less than 4 characters, then I want to display this error message. First name is less than 4 characters. This name cannot be less than 4, 4 characters here. Okay, now this is the validation error appropriate for what we are discussing here. Yes. Now, whenever the user is done typing in that first name, I want to validate that first name field to check the length. Okay. So what we'll do here in this case, so you got the requirement, right, all of you? I don't want to wait till the form is submitted. Yes, once user is done typing in that first name, immediately I would like to validate that first name to check whether first name is first name's length is less than 4 characters. If so, we'll raise a validation error here. Okay, so what we'll do is here for this requirement, we'll use on change. We should know that user has typed in something in that field, right? Or the field content has changed. Whenever that input field content changes, so initially it is blank. If user types in something, we should know. Okay, so this is where your on change event comes into picture. On change event. Yes. See, on change. So what I will do is here, even for on change also, I will call this function validate form. validate form. So this is event on change. So whenever content, whenever the input field content changes, this event will be triggered as it is. Let's see. So say I'll type in something like this, and I'll move on to the next field. See, it says first name cannot be less than 4 characters. So now there is one more point. So when the browser, or when we can say that actually the user is done typing in the data here, when user moves on to the next field, right? When we can say user is done typing in the data, when user moves on to the next field, then we can say that the user is done typing in the data, right? In that particular field. Then you see here, conceptually I'm talking about it. So then we can confirm that okay, user is done typing in the data. So one more thing here, the browser also will check whether that forms content is the field content is changed or not. If it finds that if the field's content is changed, simply it will call that function which you have registered. Yes, on change event. Yes, fine. Okay, I hope you people got it. That is how on change event works. Okay, next, you know what? Whenever user selects an input field, I want to change the background color of that input field. I want to change the background color of that input field. So what to do? Oh, there is one more event. When user selects a field, whenever user selects an input field, I want to change the background. When user selects a field, not when user types in. On focus, we have something called as on focus for that. Okay, on focus event. So remember this event name is very important. Okay, on focus. So now here you see change PG background. This is a function I'll call. want to display, I want that background color as that input field to display in gray color. So gray color code I don't remember. Let's see. Opening the browser. HTML color codes. Color picker, we say we'll have color picker. We want it to be light gray. It should be light gray. Yes, this is better. We'll take this color code. Okay, hash EF E9E8. EF E9E8. Now access the text field. Document dot get element by ID. First name dot. Now we have to add the color. What to do in the last class? We saw that.
By calling the set attribute method.
Set attribute. Yes. So we can add attribute or modify the attribute using the set attribute method, right? So now what to do? We will add a style attribute. Okay. Yes. So in that style attribute, you can add that background color. Style property, style attribute. So background, just do this. Okay. Now this way, when user selects this field, we'll add the background to it. Yes. whenever that field is selected. Yes. No, it's not working. Just a minute.
The spelling,
Type instead of start.
style, yeah. Set attribute style. That's
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Yeah. You see, as of now, you see the background is white. I'll select this first name field. So the background has changed. So which helps the user to easily understand that this is the field which is currently highlighted or selected here. Yes. Just a minute, please. Just a minute. Yeah. Sorry. Actually, I want to apply the same event. I mean, the same. I want to do the same for other input fields also. As of now, see, we have written this function which is particularly adding that background color to that first name field. But what if I want to apply the same effect to other input fields also? What to do to the other input fields also? I won't apply the same effect. Hmm, how class works here? But if you use class, that effect will be applied to multiple elements at once. Class is used to group similar elements. To all the elements which belong to that class, this effect will be applied. It means all the fields background color will change. You can't use class. You got the point, all of you? Class is used to group similar elements. So what happens? It will apply that effect to all the input fields which belong to that class. Actually, I mean, we need a kind of generic method here which can be used to apply this background color to any element. To any element, we should be able to do that. So how it is possible? Yes. So this is where this keyword comes into the picture. We can pass that current object reference or current elements reference, I can say. So this code we have written here, you see, we're hard coding the text field name, input field name, which is making us difficult to use it for other input fields, right? We can't do that now. We can't use it for other input fields. So instead of this, we change the functionality here. This method should take a parameter that is nothing but the elements reference as inputs. So when you're calling that function, it is possible to pass that elements reference dynamically this way. It is possible to pass that elements reference dynamically here this way. So what is this here? This elements reference, we are passing it dynamically. Okay, that elements reference is passed dynamically here. Yes. You know, that reference can be stored here, right? So we don't have to explicitly read that elements reference now. We are passing it dynamically. So we don't have to explicitly read that elements reference. Yes. Now you got the reference. Straight away, you can use that reference to call the set attribute method and apply the background color this way. Okay. Now you see, you can use this method not only for, this function not only for first name, but you can use it for last name, email, every field now. See, for, for last name also you can do the same. So when you're calling it, that elements reference is passed here. That's it. Okay. We can do the same here for email also. City. It works for all the fields. So you select any field. Now you see the background color will change. Okay. The thing is here, when user selects the field, okay, I want to change the background color. That means the field, when the field is when the field is highlighted, or when the field is selected, I want to change the background color. That's fine. But that when the field loses that focus, we say, okay, if the field is not highlighted, if the field is no more highlighted, I want to change the background color again to white. I want to change the background color to white again. Now let's say first name is selected. Okay, now it is gray. If I move on to if I select last name, now last name should be in gray, first name should be in white. That means only when the element is in focus, I want that background color to be in gray. Otherwise, it should not be in gray. Yes. If the element loses focus, the background color should change to white. So what to do? I hope you people got the question right. Okay. On cursor, on not cursor in the sense there are different events like on like mouse move, mouse enter, mouse leave will be there. Actually, in this case, the event when the element loses focus, it is actually called as on blur. When the element loses focus, it is actually called as on blur. Remember this. It doesn't matter it is which framework in UI, whether Angular, jQuery, JavaScript, the event names will be same. Okay. So here the event is on blur. So on blur means this event on blur event will be raised when an element loses focus. Okay. When the element it loses focus, it is actually called as on blur. Okay. Yes. On blur. Now Let's say I'll just change background to white. This is a function we'll call function. So white's color code, let's see, is all F's, I guess. All F's. Now we'll apply this event to all other functions, all other elements. On blur. Okay, now you see, if user selects his first name field, now the background color has changed. Now I'll select last name field. When I select the last name field, first name field will lose focus. No, this effect is not applied. Yes, so I'm not taking the parameter element reference. Okay, take this parameter element reference. Select this first name. I'll select last name. So when I select last name, first name field will lose focus. So when the first name field loses focus, the background color of the first name is supposed to change, right? Yes. I'll select last name. Still it's not working. Just a second.
You have to send the element reference
I'm not doing
on
this. Yeah.
change.
This current
Yeah.
element reference. This. So select first name, select last name. Yeah. You see now, only one of the elements is elements color is gray here. Yes. Okay. Now select email. See, only email is in gray. So this way we can use this events on change, on blur, and what else? On focus. Okay. Let me just show you people the other events also. Now, other events you can just apply them the same way. Just I'll give you an overview. That's it.
Mahesh.
Yeah,
So even the validation method is, the validate method. Even that we can use the element reference thing.
yeah, you can. But when it comes to validate method, we are dealing with a form here, right? In the form, you have group of input fields. So you're talking about this on submit validate form, right? So in this case, you
Uh,
can pass that form reference here. So I'm using this validate form for both input, for handling the input event as well as sorry, I'm using it for the input field as well as the form here. That's the reason why I'm not passing the reference, you see, on change validate form. So in both the cases, I'm calling it. Now it will be difficult. Yeah. There are similar type of elements, you see, like if you're dealing with only input fields in that form, then you can, sorry, in that method, then you can do it. I'm applying it for both the form as well as the input elements. Okay. And still anyone got any questions? Yeah, you can pass the reference. What happens in that case, forms reference will be passed, or you can pass that input elements reference also. It works. Okay. Now what are the events you see? On change, on click, on mouse over. When you hover the mouse over an element, if you hover the mouse over the element, then that is on mouse over. On mouse out. Let me just show you people here. Yes, there will be some examples. Yeah, you see, if you can check this, we have this text mouse over me on the right side. On the right side box here, you'll find this mouse over me. Now you see, if you hover the mouse over the text, so that event will trigger. So that is what is registered here. Okay, what is the sum event? No, no sum issue. Just a second. You can check this mouse events here. You see, on mouse over, on mouse over. So directly this code is written here. You see, what to do. The code is directly written here. If you want to call a function, you can just simply call a function. In this case, you see that color property set, we can do this. It is also possible. Or if you move the cursor over this header, what happens? That header content or color, the header color will change to red. That is what happens in this case. And there is one more thing, on mouse out. That means when the mouse moves out of that header, when you move the mouse out of that header, there is on mouse out event. On mouse out. In that case, what happens, you see, again, the color is changed to black, to previous color. That's it. You can try this, you see. Now I'll hover the mouse over the text. Yeah, it is red in color. You see, still the mouse is on that header. So still the color is red. Now, if I remove the cursor, remove the cursor from over that header, the color changes to black. Yes. Okay. So these are mouse events. Now you can call a function instead here. Instead of changing the property, you can call a function. If you have multiple lines of code to execute, so we can do that. Yes. Okay. Now these are the basic events. Now you will be able to work with other events also. You see, onload is there when the page loads. As soon as the page loads, if you want to execute something, you got an event for that also. Okay. Yes. Onload event means when the page loads. Yeah, when the page loads. Fine. Now let's move on. Now I'll talk about Ajax here. Okay, let me talk about Ajax. Let's see. Ajax is also JavaScript itself. Okay, yeah. So Ajax, it stands for asynchronous JavaScript and XML. Ajax stands for asynchronous JavaScript and XML. So what is this Ajax all about? Because few people might be knowing this. What is Ajax? Yes. No idea? Okay. You know, okay, I can say that Ajax is actually is used. Ajax is a technique, I can say actually. It's not a framework or something like that. It's not a framework or API. Ajax is a technique through which technique used to place asynchronous calls used to place asynchronous calls to the server. Yes. So we can make asynchronous calls to the server. So when I say asynchronous calls to the server, what does that mean? So this is very important. Asynchronous calls. Usually the client places synchronous calls itself, but we can make the client to place asynchronous calls. So when I say asynchronous call, what does that mean? Okay, I'm done. Now let's take this example. Here we have register form. Now if I submit this register form, you know what happens. So the browser
Goes to
will
the
collect,
server.
yeah, the browser what it does, it will collect all this form data first of all, right? It will collect this form data and it constructs a HTTP request and will send that request to the server. On the server side, servlet is processing that request. You know that. Now, after placing the request, meanwhile, the server is let's say the server is processing that request. Meanwhile, what the browser does. Meanwhile, what exactly the browser does. So the browser here, will it wait for the server's response, or will it be able to resume with the execution and you know respond to the user's actions? The web page, will it be able to do that? I mean, sorry, the client, will it be able to do that? Will it wait, or it will continue with handling users' events and all users' actions? It will wait. Yeah, definitely it will wait. You see, when the client is waiting, you will find that you see that loading image, right? Page reloading image, and end users will not be able to work with that page. End users won't be able to work with that page. It is not possible. Now end users have to wait till this client gets the response from the server. Then only the client will resume execution and it will be able to handle the user's actions and all. Yes. Then only we can work with that page. Otherwise you have to wait. You can't do anything. Let me demonstrate it with an example here. Okay. See, intentionally I'll add the sleep here. So that means this servlet won't execute. The thread will be responsible for executing this code which you got in the servlet, right? So the thread which executes this do get method, I'm instructing that servlet to wait for 2 lakhs milliseconds. It will wait for 2 lakhs milliseconds, I can say. Let's see what happens. Now what happens to the client? See, this servlet is supposed to process the request, right? Yes. This client will be waiting for that much of time. So till the servlet sends a response, the client can't do anything. It will just wait for the server's response here. That's all. That's all it does. Now we will access this register page. So we'll type in some data here. Okay, and then submit the form. So let's see. Let's see, this page is loading here. If you can check this. So let me just use a different browser. If it is a big page, sorry, I didn't get that. HTTP // register.html. Sorry. Still the page is loading. Okay, still the page is loading here. Able to copy the URL. Sample web launch, right? Sample web launch. You see, you got this loading symbol here. Now you see, the client will wait till it gets the response from the server. Okay. So I don't want this to happen. After placing the request, I don't want the client to wait for the response. So that page will be still interactive. In the background, the client will read the response. Whenever the server sends the response, it will read that response data, it will collect the response data, and accordingly, it will update that page. Accordingly, it will update the page content. That is what happens. Okay, this is still this pages are loading. So just waiting for the server's response. So sometimes this can be awkward. Here we can make this is synchronous call. What we saw was synchronous call. We can make asynchronous calls here. That means the client, after placing the request, it need not wait for the server's response. We can do that. Okay. So what are the things which we can do here with Ajax? Let's see. So Ajax is not a programming language. Ajax is just use of combination of XML, HTTP request object, JavaScript, and HTML DOM. That's it. Yes. You see, this is an important point here. So this is what you need to understand. First of all, we can place asynchronous calls using Ajax. That is the first point. And second thing, here you see, Ajax allows web pages to update asynchronously by exchanging data with web server behind the scenes. Asynchronously means just now, as I told you people. So without having to wait for the server's response after placing the request. So you see, this means that it is possible to update parts of a page without reloading the whole page. Yes. So we don't have to reload the page. When the client is waiting for the server's response, how will you know that the client is waiting for the server's response? How it is indicated actually? Yes. How do you
So
know
it
that?
gets loaded.
Yes. You see page reloading, right? That itself indicates that this client is waiting for the server's response. See, without reloading the page, it is possible to update parts of the page by getting the response from the server. Yes, behind the scenes we can do that. So this is one of the technique, I can say that we can use it to handle client side events on the server side. Now just know what we did. We saw some events, right? So where we are handling that events on blur, on focus, what we did so far, that events which we saw, where we are handling that events, yes. On the client side or server side?
Client side.
Yeah, basically we are handling that events on the client side. But it is possible to handle that client side events on the server side. Yes, without page submission or form submissions, without page reloading, you can handle this events on the server side. This is possible. Client side events can be handled on the server side, I can say. Yes. That is what we can do with Ajax. How it works. Okay, let's learn this technique of placing asynchronous calls, okay, on the server. But before that, let's take a break of 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Okay, after the break, we'll continue. So I'll explain this Ajax technique. So let's see. Okay, just let's take a tea break. Yeah, so 10 minutes. Okay, so I'm back. I hope you're also available. So shall we start? Can you people hear me?
Yes, Mahesh.
Okay, great. So now we have this register form, right? Generally, I take this example because it's the best example to show you people Ajax. Let's say through this register form, users are allowed to also select the username of their own choice. Okay, while registering, they can provide the username. So for that username, you see I'm adding a text field here. For the username, I'm adding a text field. So while registering, they can also provide the username of their own choice. But there is a problem here. What is it? What do you think? If users are provided the option to provide the username of their own choice, so what will be the issue here?
It might have been used already.
Yeah,
Redundant records.
yes. I mean, yeah, the username might have been taken by some other user, right? Okay, so we have to validate this username. We need to validate this username here. Now, when to validate this username? You see, if the username is validated after the form is submitted, okay, after the form submitted, that means you see, the entire form data will be sent to the server. But first of all, that username should be available. Let's say, what if the username is taken by some other user? In that case, you see, the rest of the registration details are waste. No, right? Again, the user has to provide a valid username. Until and unless user provides a valid username, I mean the username which is not taken by some other users, you see, user cannot be registered. So what to do? So we should be able to validate this username beforehand itself. Okay, beforehand itself. I mean, once the user is done providing this username, immediately we should validate that username to check whether that username is available or taken by some other user. So if the username is available, then the user can proceed further and provide other details. Otherwise, it's waste of providing the details, right? Yeah. So how can we make sure that the username is validated as soon as the user provides that username? Yes. You see, that username validation, is it client-side validation or server-side validation, first of all? What do you think?
Client side validation.
It's server-side validation, not client-side. Because you see, this user details will be on the database, in the database on the server side, right? The user details will be on the database side in the
Okay,
server.
okay.
So that the username has to be validated on the server side itself. It's a server side validation, not client side. So that means now we should be able to send this username to the server to get it validated to check whether some other user has taken this username or whether it is available or not, right? Yes. So what is the event we have to use here first of all? Can you people tell me? What is the event we are supposed to use here? So on change event should be used. So on change event will help us to understand when once the user is done with providing the username, right? Yes. Here you can use on change event. So once user is done providing the username, so I will send that username to the server. For that we have to construct a request. You see, this should be Ajax call. So I don't want to make a asynchronous call here. I don't want to make it a synchronous call. So I want to make it as asynchronous call here. Okay. Yes. So without page reloading or refreshment, I want to do that. Yes. So what to do? You see, you need to make use of Ajax here. So first, we'll register a function on change equal to say validate username function validate username. You can pass that reference. It's better, right? Yeah. So we can avoid reading that elements reference and all. Sorry. Set attribute. Sorry. We'll read that username. How will you read the username from that input field? We got the reference to that input field, right? How will you read that username from that input field?
Document dot get element id dot value.
We got the reference already, right? We don't need to use document.getElement here. You got the point? That reference will be passed here. That elements reference is passed here. will be stored in that variable. Yeah, dot val. Now we got the reference. Just we need to use that property dot value to read that input field value. So that input field value stored in that property value which belongs to that object. Yes. So you got that username. Let me just store it in a variable this way. Username. Okay. So next, here how we need to send this request to the server. On the server side, there should be someone to handle this request to validate this username. We need something on the server side. So what is it? How will you handle this request on the server side? What you need on the server side? Yes. Yes, we can use a servlet here to handle this request. Okay. Yes. So let me just do one thing. I'll quickly create a servlet to handle this request, validation request. Okay. First, let's create a servlet. So we have a servlet wizard here to create a servlet. You see, we can use the servlet wizard. Select this servlet wizard here. The servlet name, say validate username servlet. I'll make this class extends HTTP servlet. The URL for this servlet, you see, let's say validate your name. This is the URL, let's say. So this URL should be used to place the request for this servlet. Okay. The client, in order to call this servlet, it is supposed to use this URL. Yeah. Validate your name. Next, we'll override do get method here. That means the servlet will handle HTTP method get request. So only check do get, uncheck all other methods. Just check do get. That's it. Click on finish. You see, now we got the servlet. Here, when this servlet is invoked, so this servlet is supposed to read that username. To this servlet, the username will be passed. Okay. So this servlet is supposed to read that username and check whether that username is taken by some other user. That means the usernames list, generally it will be the database server, right? So what I'll do is here, for time being, I'll simply create a list here with the usernames. Okay, I'll create a list with the usernames here. So that is what I'll do. Yes. So I'll create a list. Let's say usernames list. I will initialize it in the init method. Generally, in servlets, to initialize the servlet, we use init method. You see, in the init method, you can write the code. Sorry. The server, in the server, you'll have a container which will be responsible for instantiating the servlet classes and all. After the server creates the servlet class object, you know what it does? It will call this init method to initialize the servlet. If you have any initialization code, you can write it here. Now I would like to initialize that list. That is the initialization code I want to write here. Yes. Usernames list equal to new array list. Just create array list here. Or else I can quickly do this. Arrays classes dot as list. You can pass a string array of usernames. So you can say Harry, Kumar, Raj. So these are the list of users. What we are doing here, you see, I'm calling as list method and passing that string array. So as list method, what it does, now it will take that string array, reads the elements from that string array, and it will store that elements into a list object. It creates a list object here and stores the elements in that list. That's it. It will store the elements in the list here. Yes. And it is that list object reference. So we don't have to explicitly create this collection object here. That is what we are doing. Okay. Yes. So now we got this list of users. How many users are there in the list now? 4 users are there. Okay. We got 4 users. Okay. So now the responsibility of the servlet is to read all this. It has to read this. Sorry, it has to read that username supplied by the client. The client will be sending that username, right? The client will be sending the username here. So it has to read that username. So how it will read that username? Through the request object. Always in the request object you'll have the data. So let's say username. We'll pass a parameter. I'll show you how to pass a parameter. It will take that username. And what it does, you see, it has to check for this username in the list. So how will you search for that username in the list? There is a method in the list. What is it? Yes.
Contains.
Contains. Yes. Use contains method to search for that element. That's right. So now use that list object reference, call contains method on the list and pass a username. Okay. So if that username is existing in the list, okay, the username supplied with the user, provided with the user, if it is existing in the list, what does that mean? The username is already taken by some other user. It indicates that this username is already taken by some other user. Okay. Yes. In that case, here, what we are supposed to do, the servlet, let's say it will send a response back to the client that the username is taken. Simple message. It will send it back to the client, let's say. Okay. Yes. we have to construct the response. For that, we need a print writer object. We obtain a print writer object through the response object. You see, response.getWriter out.println print a message. Username is taken. Yes. Sorry. First, we'll add the style to the div itself. Not a problem. We'll just send this message. That's it. Not even font. It is not needed. Sorry. Username is taken. This is the message which it sends. Else, it sends username is available. Okay. Username is available. So this is the servlet code which you got here. So it will check for that username in the list, registered users list. If that username is available, sorry, if the username is already taken, it means that username is in that list, right? So this is the message which will present username is taken. The user is supposed to choose a different name now. Okay. But actually, it would be better to just add the font here because now we have two colors, style, and we can just add this color red. Green. So username is available. Make it green. Yes, that's it. Now here you see, I hope you people understood this code. Any questions in this regard? No questions, right? Okay, good. So here, here we'll define that function, validate username, which will make Ajax call. Function, validate username. Already, sorry, we have it here, right? I'm sorry. Now we got the username. So we need to create a XML HTTP request object. I'll declare a variable. You see, just it's a variable. Outside of the function, I'm declaring it so that it becomes global. Okay, I want to make it a global variable because I need to access this variable in another function also. In multiple functions, we need to access this variable. I'll tell you why we use this variable. It's just a user-defined variable itself. The name can be anything you wish. Okay, the name can be anything you wish. There is no such restriction on it. So now I'll create that XML HTTP request object. So this XML HTTP request object itself helps us to place that AJAX call. Okay, the XML HTTP request object itself, it helps us to place AJAX call here. You see, I'm creating that XML HTTP request class object. So not only to place the request, after placing the request, you see, it helps us to read the response for everything completely. Okay. Yes. We need this XML HTTP request object here. Okay. Yes. So now after creating this XML HTTP request object, now you have to add the request information here. You see, the request is supposed to be placed for the servlet, right? The request is supposed to be placed for the servlet here. Yes. So XML HTTP request dot use this open method. You got a method called as open, which is used to provide the request information. Yeah, it is used to provide the request information, I can say. So first parameter to this open method is the HTTP method details. Okay, HTTP method details. We need to pass that HTTP method details here. Yes. So what is HTTP method, by the way? Just try to recollect quickly. What is HTTP method? So what is HTTP method? I mean, yeah, post is HTTP method, but why the client uses HTTP method? What is the purpose of HTTP method? So HTTP method actually, it is used to specify what type of request the client is placing. The client is placing what type of request here. Okay, so here to fetch a resource or to add a resource or to update a resource or delete a resource or the resource information, what exactly the client wants. So HTTP method always, it is used to specify what type of request the client is placing. In this case, we want to place the request for that servlet, right? Yes. So in this case, what you can do is you can use get method. You can go for HTTP method get, I can say. Yes. So I'll place a get request here. The first parameter to the open method should be HTTP method itself. Next to the second parameter is the URL. You see, you want to place a request for that servlet, right? You want to place a request for that servlet here. Yes, that is what you want to do. So you see, you need to pass the URL of that servlet here. Pass the URL of the servlet. So what is that URL? I don't want to make any typo mistake. Yeah, just copy it and paste it here. Yes. Validate uname. Slash is not needed. And you see, we should also send that username. How will you send that username here? You know, to send that username, I'll use a query parameter. Just I'll append that username to this URL itself. I'll append username to this URL itself here. Okay, that is what I'll do. See question mark username. This is the query parameter name equal to, where is the username here now? It is stored in this variable username. Just assign it plus username. So this way we can construct a query string. You see, you have that servlet details as well as the query parameter is also added here. So to this servlet, I want to pass that username. Next, the third parameter here, it is a boolean value which indicates whether the request is a get request or whether it is asynchronous call or synchronous call. So if you want to make a asynchronous call, this value should be true here. The value is supposed to be true. if it is if you want to place a synchronous call, the third parameter should be true here. Okay, make sure that it is true. So username and password, you don't need to provide it. Okay, until and unless the server is asking, you don't need to provide it. Yes. So in this case, you don't need it. Yes. Next thing, what else? That's it. So first, the HTTP method details. Second, the URL, which servlet is supposed to process that request. And you see, as part of to that URL itself, we are appending that username also as a query parameter. And then we are passing that boolean value true, which indicates that it is a asynchronous call. Okay. Yes. Fine. Now we just added the request information here. Nothing more than that. We just added request information here by using this open method. Next, we have to send the request to the server. How will you do that? Using the send method. In the XML HTTP request object itself, we got send method here. You can call the send method. Okay. The thing is, before you call the send method, I can say that you have to register a callback function, because the client won't wait for the server's response. You need to register a callback function. The callback function will be invoked whenever the client receives the response from the server. As soon as the client receives the response from the server, you see this callback function will be called. Okay. Yes. So we have to register a callback function. So it's better to register a callback function, I can say. Yes. So you see, you have to do this. XML HTTP request dot. We have a property on ready state change, and you have to register a function, callback function here. Let's say process response. You can give any name to this function. I didn't define that function. I'll define it now. Just the function name you have to provide it. Where you will define the function, here you can define the function. You see, process response. Okay. Yes. Fine. Now you see, if there is any validation error, I want to display that validation error here, just adjacent to this username field. Okay, adjacent to the username field, I want to display that validation error message. So what I will do here, I'll add a cell adjacent to this username field, and we'll add the div element here, id equal to, and call it as error message. Okay, the error message, which will be populated here. Okay, now what is the code we need to write? Let's go back to this callback function. When the callback function will be called, when the client receives the response from the server, this function will be called, and this function will be responsible for reading that response and accordingly process the response here. Okay, that is what the callback function is going to do now. Yeah. So you see, first of all, in the callback function, you have to check whether the request is successfully processed or not. Okay, how will you know whether the request is successfully processed or not. Here you can use that XML HTTP request dot. We have property status. You see, the status value should be 200. Okay, the status value should be 200, and we'll add one more condition here. And one more thing, you have a property called as ready state. This ready state property value should be 4. The ready state property value, if it is 4, then it indicates that the request processing is completed. It indicates that request processing is completed here. If the ready state property value is 4. If the ready state property value is 4, the request processing is done. The request is processed. But after processing the request here, now the request is successfully processed, or whether there is any issue processing the request, you need that information also, right? So this is where the status code comes into the picture. You see, the status here, it should be 200. The server sends the status code. If the status is 200, then it indicates that the request is processed successfully without any issues. The request is processed successfully without any issues if the status 200. So these are the properties which are in the XML HTTP request object itself. Okay, these are the properties which are in XML HTTP request object. Okay, yes. Now we have to read the data, the response data, and we have to add it to that div element here. You know, that error message, whatever it is, we'll add it here. Okay. How will you read the response? You see that response is also in this XML HTTP request object itself. Dot response text. So this is the property which holds that response received from the server. Okay. This is the property which holds the response received from the server, I can say. Yes. Okay. Now this response text, we need to add it to that div element, which is adjacent to that username field. Yes. So we have to access that element, right? So document dot get element by ID. What is element ID? ERR message dot inner HTML. Just update it with this response text which you got. That's it. This is what we'll do here. Okay. So altogether we have two functions. First function, we are creating XML HTTP request object. So first reading that username, creating XML HTTP request object, and adding the request information here. Through the open method, we are passing that request information. Once we're done adding the request information, you'll register a callback function here. The process response is a callback function. So this function will be called when the client receives the response from the server. Yes. So that it can read the response and dynamically update the page. You see, it is updating that message dynamically, right? Yes. And once you're done registering this callback function, you can call this send method. So which will send the request to the server. Okay. Yes. So once the request is sent to the server, on the server side, you see the servlet is reading that username, which is passed as a parameter, and it will check for that username. If it is if the username is in the list, that means it is already taken by some other user. It sends a message, appropriate message to the client. If it is not in the list, then no one is taking that username. So this user is free to take that username. Yes, it will send an appropriate message for that also. So this is how it works. Once see the response is received, the client side process response function will be called. So internally, you see, browser will be updating this property value, ready state, status, also response text. You see, now you can use this information which is in the XML HTTP request to understand whether the request is processed, whether there is any issue processing the request. If there are no such issues, then you can read the response text from the XML HTTP request object itself and update in the page accordingly. Yes. So let's see. Here, we'll try to access that page. Remote state code. So frameworks will further simplify this process of making Ajax calls and all. Okay. Yes. You see, we have this username field. So I'll type in something. Say Harry is already taken, right? I'll type in Harry and I'll move on to the next field, first name. So that on change will be triggered because the input field content has changed, right? Yes. Now it says username is taken. Yes. Let's provide some other name. Let's say Steve. You see, after typing in, if I select first name field, that event is triggered. It says username is available. So this way, you can make Ajax calls here. Yes. Is it clear, all of you? So can you people give me other examples where you saw Ajax calls? I mean, the applications of Ajax.
Gmail or any kind of a registration.
Yeah. Apart from registrations.
Ticket booking.
Then nowadays, every website, I can say, yeah, it is based on that. It uses Ajax. Even in Google, you see, when you type something, you'll get some proposals, right? Content assist will be there. So if you type in initial letters, some data is loaded from the server side. Even that is Ajax call itself. Yes. Auto completion. So can you people do one thing? So, I mean, it's not a Ajax call though. You try to implement it here. City, when user types in the city name, I want you people to, let's say, if user types in N, you have to list down all the city names starting with N. It's not a Ajax call. You have to list down all the cities whose name starts with N. Will you try this, all of you? I mean, it should display them here. User should be able to select one of the city. Okay, that is what I want you people to do.
Mahesh,
Yeah,
where did we extend the servlet? I missed that.
we have a wizard which we are using. So to create the servlet, I'm sorry, not this one.
No. Okay. The registered controller extends, is it? Okay.
No, not the register controller. I created another servlet. Here in the src folder, you have it. Validate is the name. So basically, you can use that servlet wizard to create the servlet. Okay, in the source folder, you can right click on it. So you have servlet wizard. By default, you see you have the superclass details here. HTTP servlet. Okay.
Okay.
So this is a special wizard used to create servlet itself. Yeah. So I have few more things to talk about regarding the Ajax. We'll do it in the next session. Sometime over the weekend, let me plan a session again. So where I would like to complete this jQuery part, sorry, Ajax part and start with jQuery also. Okay. So meanwhile, from tomorrow onwards, you can attend your regular classes at your regular times using regular ones. Okay. Yes. So if there is any special class, I'll inform you people. Meanwhile, from tomorrow onwards, you'll have your regular classes at your regular times. Okay. That's it. I'll stop it here today. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mahesh.
Yeah, sure.